Okay, thank you very much. I'm wired for sound, so I'm ready to go. It's a delight to be here, a real pleasure to be here, and also to be able to talk about a Northern Ireland response to being trauma-informed. And I think the message, hopefully, that will be given around that response that's coming from Northern Ireland is a really positive one and a really good one. So I hope over the course of the next 20 minutes to half an hour, I'll be able to share that a little bit with you. It was just interesting, Magella was picking up on some of the quotes around the room, and maybe I should share one with you too. The one at our table was Alice in Wonderland, but could I maybe share a quote from J.B. Priestley? And just when we talk about the nice day it is today, and J.B. Priestley always said that he was always delighted at the prospect of a new day, a brand new start, a new beginning, and the hope and anticipation that a little bit of magic might unfold behind the morning. And I think there's an energy in this room today around adversity and the impact that it has in families, that we might see a little bit of magic unfold behind this morning as we roll out this programme. I'm delighted to also see that the programme in your masterclass today is around understanding adversities and experiences for children and families. But more importantly, I'm delighted to see that the question that you're posing yourself is, how do I respond? And that's the most important question. So I'm going to start by showing you a small video clip. It's 6 minutes, and I think this will set the scene for what I want to say from a Northern Ireland context.
My parents don't understand. All the drinking and fighting means I'm scared. I'd like a cuddle, perhaps a bedtime story, but mostly I'd like them to stop shouting at me. And sometimes they hit me. Feeling scared every day and not feeling loved or wanted will change me for the rest of my life. Later, I'll have problems at school, problems with alcohol, and I'll get in trouble with the police. What's happening to me right now means I'm more likely to have serious health problems in middle age and die sooner than I should. Doctors say my life is full of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. But in my world, this means I see my dad hitting my mum. Dad's got a drinking problem, and mum's always crying, even with the tablets. I am always being shouted at and hit. After the booze and fags, there's not a lot of money for toys or clothes, or even food. I'm getting used to being scared all the time. Now I'm just angry. The doctors say things are changing inside me. My brain isn't learning how to control my feelings properly. My body can't relax like those kids who don't have ACEs, so my body won't be able to repair itself properly when I get older, making it more likely I'll get cancer or heart disease as an adult. It hurts when my parents hit me, but the real damage is hidden, and that damage will be with me for life.
I drink and smoke. They say I'm out of control, but I'm not. It's just my way of coping with my ACEs. I've been in plenty of fights, but what's wrong with that? Kids' punches don't hurt half as much as when my dad hits me. I beat up a kid last week at school because he looked at me weird. Who cares? I ended up with more time out of school. Learning's not for me anyway, and the teachers don't care any more than my parents. I don't like the way anyone looks at me except my girl. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum was with me.
So this is where I've ended up. I've got diabetes and cancer's probably on the way. I know these kill you, but I couldn't do without them. I've never had a proper job and I've spent time inside. I hate my kids I hit their mum too, until she left, so my kids have grown up with ACEs. And now my daughter had her first kid. She's 16. The course of my life was set in the wrong direction a long time ago. I know where I'm heading, and sadly I know where my kids are heading too. This doesn't have to happen. A little help in childhood makes a big difference to where life takes you. When I was a baby, the nurses noticed that my mum wasn't coping and helped her and explained how important my childhood is to the rest of my life. So, with a bit of help, she coped. The police came round after next door complained about the noise from Mum and Dad fighting. They asked how I was feeling. I told them I was scared all the time. Mum and Dad got help. The shouting got better and the hitting stopped. I even got some bedtime stories. I still had problems at school, but the teacher asked me about what was happening at home. I got help controlling my feelings. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. I'm now married with 2 children, and I've got a job, most of the time. I haven't repeated the same problems with my kids. We got help when being a parent got too much. Our children are ACE-free, and that means their kids stand a good chance of growing up ACE-free as well. Almost half the people in England and Wales experienced 1 ACE as a child, and 1 in 10 of us suffered 4 or more ACEs. If we stop ACEs, millions of children would not become smokers or binge drinkers, and levels of violence in adults would be cut in half. Fewer ACEs in childhood also means fewer adults developing diseases like cancer, heart disease and diabetes in middle age. We all need to be ACE aware. Are you? Doctors, police, nurses, teachers, firefighters and most importantly parents. The more you know about ACEs, the more you can help stop children growing up with ACEs in their lives. And for those of you who have already suffered ACEs, the more you know, the more you can help yourself and others who have suffered ACEs cope.
Okay, the Welsh accent's a wee bit of a challenge, but then again, the Derry accent's probably a wee bit of a challenge too, but so bear with me. So what's the Northern Ireland response to this? Northern Ireland response to this is quite proactive, thankfully, and I think Northern Ireland from a slow start is really catching up. So currently, from a Northern Ireland response around adverse childhood experiences, we are now participating in the Celtic Nations think tank. It started 2 years ago in Edinburgh, where the Scottish Government set up a think tank and they invited Northern Ireland and Wales to become part of that. So the think tank's up and running. It has met on 3 more occasions, and it has now been extended from 3 nations to 6 nations, including the Republic of Ireland, England and Jersey. So having that Celtic Nations think tank enables us now to begin to link that to the policy context in Northern Ireland. And I'll say a little bit about the policy context in a moment. But as part of the think tank, Northern Ireland decided that we would also host the Celtic Nations. So back in November, we held a conference in Templepatrick, and it was the day before the Celtic Nations workshop. And it was oversubscribed considerably. We had 400 places and we had 400 on the waiting list. It was sold out in 24 hours. So we could begin to see there's an appetite in Northern Ireland to begin to understand the question that you have posed to yourself: what can I do to change the response? And what you can do is to continue the conversations. And today I'm here hopefully to do 3 things. To continue to build the momentum, because the momentum has started now, and I need all of you to continue to build the momentum. But I also need you, through your organisations, to begin conversations around this. And don't get caught up in the numbers. People read into ACEs and they get caught up in the 10 adverse childhood experiences. And somebody has 4 out of 10, or somebody has 5 out of 10, or somebody has 3 out of 10. What does that all mean? Don't get caught up in the numbers. The numbers and the theory aren't that important. The important piece is understanding what lies behind it and your response to it. To help us guide Northern Ireland through, we've also now established in Northern Ireland a regional reference group, and that has just started. I'm chairing the regional reference group for Northern Ireland, and that's to begin to chart through how we make sure that there's a coordinated, collaborative response to adverse childhood experiences, but most importantly, that we begin to move Northern Ireland towards being a more trauma-informed country. So this is, at this stage, still about hearts and minds. It is about winning hearts and minds, and I know we have the hearts and the minds of all of you, but I need you to leave this room and begin those conversations, grow the momentum, and have the hearts and minds of the people that you work with and the local communities that you work with. Over the next 6 months in Northern Ireland, we're also going to develop a strategic plan. So we will have something, not a large document, but a plan that will lay out the strategic direction around making Northern Ireland a trauma-informed country. And very slowly, we're catching up on Wales and Scotland, and they see us breathing down their necks in terms of probably being one of the first regions to be wholly transformational and trauma-informed. And we're in a lucky position in Northern Ireland because we're beautifully formed in the sense that it's a small country. It's no greater than Greater Manchester, and we have 1.5 million people. So we have a real opportunity through collaboration and opportunities like this to become more trauma-informed together. So let's collaborate to transform. So the Northern Ireland context, from my perspective, just to give you a little snapshot of some of the figures that are around Northern Ireland. And you'll see it yourself. Smoking during pregnancy, I'll pick out a few of those, some of the indicators. In the most deprived areas in Northern Ireland, currently, 29.7% of mums-to-be smoke in the least deprived areas. And those areas are the most deprived areas. In the least deprived areas, it's as low as 9%, and we need to get it actually lower. So actually what you can begin to see from that figure and from some of the other figures that we have is that there's quite a significant difference between areas of least deprived and areas of most deprived. Some of the figures are quite stark. Currently in Northern Ireland, we also have over 3,000 children. It says 2,800 there, but it's now grown to over 3,000 children currently in Northern Ireland where it's not safe or appropriate for them to be in their own homes. Those are children who are being looked after. Within my own trust, I come from the Western Trust, we have 628 children currently in the care system, and we have over 400 children in the Child Protection Register. So there's 1,000 children within the Western Trust area alone that we pay particular attention to. And if we can begin to break the cycles of violence, abuse, and trauma, and sadness, and difficulty that those children alone experience, look at the difference that we will make. And let's just think about that 1,000 children in the Western Trust area. Just think of a primary school that has 1,000 children. That's a lot of children streaming out through a school gate at 3:30 in the afternoon or coming in at 9:30 in the morning. So we have a real opportunity to focus in. Our child population in Northern Ireland also sits at close to 500,000. So that's the population that we can begin to work with. And 100,000 of those children fall into the age group of 1 to 4 years. So the Northern Ireland context is ready. The country is small. The country has a big child population, and the country has a range of difficulties that range from the most deprived areas to the least deprived areas. So let's put that a wee bit further into context. So we can actually see that we have got some issues in Northern Ireland, issues of concern, but we're no different than any other country. So let's begin to see if we've got an integrated planning system in place, and we have. We have a Children and Young People Strategic Partnership already working in Northern Ireland, and that tries to breathe life into the 8 high-level objectives that have been set by our government to try to transform the lives of children. And these are important, and are important for your masterclass also, because you also need to begin to think how the work that you do dovetails into those high-level objectives. And if we just take a few of them, physical and mental health, promoting the physical and mental health of our children, promoting enjoyment and play and leisure, promoting learning and achievement, ensuring that children live in stability and safety, and ensure that children can make a positive contribution to our society. Those are all the high-level objectives that we are working towards. I suppose in Northern Ireland we are a wee bit unique at the moment too, that we don't have a government, but that should not stop us from doing the work. The plan is already in place, the high-level objectives are already set, and indeed there is a programme of government already established. And that's the programme of government, and we have worked very, very hard to make sure that we give our children and young people the best start in life, and it's built into bottom left, bottom right of the programme for government. So it's already there. But if we can begin to change adverse childhood experience, if we can begin to make transformational change within some of the families and break that generational cycle of abuse and violence, not only will you all give children the best possible start in life, and you all know what the research and the evidence tells you about best start. It's stacked from the floor to the ceiling. Make a difference and children will have a better start. And if you do, we will also enjoy long, healthy and active lives. So many of the other key tenets of the programme for government will be made if we give children a better start in life. Just back to the video I showed you, which was developed by Public Health Wales. One of the significant factors of the research around adverse childhood experience is that it will tell you, and I know June and others will touch on this later, it's not just the impact that this has on the mental and emotional health and well-being of children and families. It also has a significant factor and plays a significant role in the adult physical health of our children and families. I mean, the research also shows us the links to chronic heart disease, to diabetes. The link also shows us the difficulties there is around cancers. And for me, as a social worker, trying to begin to understand the trauma and how those links happen, the best example I can give you is just these children, because they've been so traumatized and have had such negative experiences, continuously remain on high alert all of their lives. For example, you and I, if we out walking on that nice sunny day and we suddenly come across an Alsatian dog that's jumping and barking mad and it's not in the lead, and you're faced with that situation, you have two choices. You know, you fight or you run. So that fight or flight kicks in, your adrenaline starts to rise, you begin to think about how you're going to deal with this dog in front of you, and then you deal with it. But once that situation is past, you, as a person, resort back down to the calm. The adrenaline stops flowing, and you breathe easier, and you think, well, I've reflected on that, and I've learnt, and I'm back into my calm state. For these children, that high alert that you felt just at that moment when you encountered that Alsatian dog remains constant with those children as they move through their life. They remain in that higher alert system, and they don't get back down to the rest phase. So invariably what they do is they wear their bodies out, and they wear them out early. We've got to change in Northern Ireland away from how we used to view and see children. And the view was that, you know, these children make a lot of bad choices in their life. They're just choosing, they've had the wrong parents, you know, they've been in the wrong socio-economic group, and they're really, really bad. And yes, they mightn't have had much of a chance in life, but you know what? The situation is the situation, and they need to take a wee bit of responsibility from themselves. We need to move away from that. And I think we are in Northern Ireland moving away from that response. We're beginning to view and to see children and families differently. And if there are three things today that you can take away from what I say to you, it's this. The three things that you can do to help begin those conversations and to begin to make a difference is to give families hope. And I seen the word hope coming up as you were doing your ice-breaking exercise at the start. Hope is key to a trauma-informed approach. Begin to give families hope. And when families don't have hope, you hold the hope for them until they can begin to see the hope, because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And somebody said to me one day, explain the psychology behind that hope. And I have a friend who tells me that she has spent all of her life trying to lose weight. And she goes to Weight Watchers or Slimming World, and she goes in and she says to Weight Watchers and Slimming World, or they say to her, well, what's your target? And she says, I want to lose 2 stone. And she said, if that response back immediately to her was, you'll never lose 2 stone, then all of the hope leaves the situation. But that's not what Slimming World do. What Slimming World do is they say to you, okay, that might be your target, but what do you want to lose by next week? Okay, £2. And she goes along next week, and they ask her how much she's lost, and she says, I've lost £2. And what does everybody do in the room? They clap. They give people hope. And if you haven't lost £2 and you've only lost £1, they still clap and they give people hope. They even clap if you put on weight. And what happens when you consistently meet those targets, when you're given hope? You get a star. Adults, and they give you a silver star, and everybody claps. But psychologically, what you're doing is you're building hope. You need to build hope with these families. And as I said, when they don't have hope, or when they're in a dark place, you need to hold that hope for them until they're able to hold it themselves. The second thing that you can do for families is ensure that in every child's life there's a trusted adult. One trusted adult. The research tells us that children do better through adversity if they've got a single trusted adult in their life. And that doesn't have to be a mum or a dad. It could be a grandmother, it could be a school coach, it could be the early years supervisor, it could be the teacher, it could be the social worker. But work to ensure that there's a consistent adult in every child's life. And finally, if you give hope and you ensure that there's a consistent adult in every child's life, then you'll build resilience. And resilience is what makes the difference. Building resilience into the families. Giving hope and having a consistent adult will ensure there's resilience. So those are the 3 important things that you can do as you begin this conversation around adversity. Our task is to become more ACE-aware and trauma-informed, and hopefully that's what we're doing today. We need to move away from the blaming culture of what's wrong with you, that blame, shame, punishment, and we need to move to what happened to you, and that's a more understanding, nurturing and healing culture. I'm going to show you a slide, just interestingly, a snapshot of prevalence. So here are some of the adversity scores. The original Kaiser Permanente study is the first level of scores that showed that 12.5% of the 17,000 people in California who were studied in a room, and they were all middle-class people studied in a room, had 4 or more adversities in their lives. And recently we held a conference in the Silver Birch Hotel in Oma, and we had over 200 professionals in the room. And we run the same adversity matrix questionnaire with the 200 people in the room with their permission. And there were 22% of those professionals in the room, nearly a quarter of the professionals in the room had 4 or more adversities in their lives. But they all had done well and managed well. And the reason that they had done well and managed well is because they had hope, and they were given hope early. Because they all had a trusted adult in their life, and you reflect back in your own life onto all of those trusted adults and consistent people that are in your own life. And they done well. But it also shows you that even in professionals and people who are doing well, adversities exist. So you should never get hung up on the score of 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10, or my God, I've got 6 out of 10. I'm really going to go off the deep end. That is not the case. That is not the case. And just very interestingly, at that same conference, we added an 11th ACE. And we measured the impact that the Troubles had, because that's peculiar to Northern Ireland. So we added an 11th score into the matrix. And 24% of the audience had 4 or more adversities in respect of the Troubles. So never underestimate the impact that the civil unrest in this country for 40 years has had on people. So I'm going to finish. It's great to be here. I'm really enthused that you are taking an interest in this topic and this subject. Because do you know what? It makes economic sense as well as social and moral sense. It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken adults. And there's an old African proverb, and it says, it takes a village to raise a child. And indeed it does take a village to raise a child. I myself won't make a difference on my own. You yourself won't make a difference on your own. But together, in this small country that's Northern Ireland, 1.5 million people, we can make a real difference and change the dynamic around adversity. Thank you very much.